So here we have the owner of the Snow Peaks Lodge located at the Cub Valley Ski Mountain was interested in gathering information to help inform their marketing decisions. They gathered data from 17 guests who stayed at least one night in the lodge to see how far they traveled to reach the Snow Peaks Lodge. Data's down here, created a box and whisker plot. We see our min, our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, our max, and our interquartile range. Then we're asked, are there any outliers in the data? And if so, what are they? So an outlier is a data point that differs significantly from other observations. In order to determine if a data point is an outlier, we need to determine the upper and lower bounds. And we do that using the interquartile range. To determine the lower bound, we take quartile 1 and we subtract 1.5 times the interquartile range. To determine our upper bound, we take quartile 3 and we add 1.5 times the interquartile range. Right? We use the interquartile range because that's showing us the spread of the middle 50% of the data. Anything outside of that upper bound or lower bound is considered an outlier. So for our data here, our lower bound, we'd be taking quartile 1, which is 210, and subtracting 1.5 times our interquartile range, which is 95. Okay, 1.5 times 95 is 142.5. So when we subtract 142.5, we see that our lower bound is 67.5. For our upper bound, we're going to take quartile 3, which is 305, and we're going to add 1.5 times our interquartile range of 95, which is going to be 305 plus 142.5, which gives us an upper bound of 447.5. So if we look, we can see we have an outlier of 510. Everything else falls within the bound, so we would say 510 is an outlier. When we have an outlier, we show that data differently on our box and whisker plot. So instead of bringing our maximum all the way to 510, we're going to put a little X there. And then the next point, the next highest point, 439, that would become our maximum. Okay, we're still going to have our box in the same place. 305, 210, and then we had 268 was our median. Our min was 78. And then that's how our box and whisker or plot would look. We still see the outlier, but we're showing that it's almost an anomaly. It's a rarity. It's the exception. So where should Snow Peaks Lodge focus their advertising? Well, if we were saying it was kind of a cost in terms of mileage, I would say that they should advertise between, the median and the third quartile, because that's where they're going to get the most bang for their buck. Okay. In our next example, we're given data for 2 basketball players playing in the last 10 games, how many points they scored a game, and we're looking to create a box and whisker plot to help the coach determine who should start in the next game. So to do this, we're going to use our graphing calculator to input our data. This way we don't have to do all the calculations by hand and the ordering and so on. So we're going to let Aubrey Griffin be our list 1, Ice Brady be our list 2. So to prepare to use our calculator, I want us to all reset our calculator. So we're going to push second memory. So second plus, we're going to push 7 to reset. All RAM, yes, we're going to reset. So we're going to push 2, and I'm going to push enter. We're doing that to make sure we're all starting with a clear calculator, that there's nothing in the list where we can put in all of our data fresh. Okay, so we've prepped our calculator. Now we're ready to do our statistics. So we're going to push the stat button, that's 2 to the right of the alpha button, right there. We're going to push stat, and we're going to edit our list. We're going to push edit. So we've got list 1, list 2, list 3, list 4, list 5, and so on. We said we were going to put Aubrey Griffin's data in list 1, so we'll input all of that data there. Right, so we're just typing in the numbers, pushing enter. Now I want to arrow over, go to list 2, so I can put in all of Ice Brady's points. Now I want to go back and double check, do I have the same number of data points? Uh-oh, no, that means I made a mistake somewhere. So in checking through my data, I can see that I put in one too many 17s. So I'll go there and I'll delete one out. I still don't have the right set of data. I've got one extra point there, so I've got to find it. Let's see, 31, 25, 22, 22, 21, 20, 17, 17, 15, 10. Nope, nothing else up there, so that must mean I'm missing a data point in list 1. So let's double check. 12, 14, 15, 17, 20, 22, 24, 24. Oh, should be another 24, so I'm going to put in the 24, and then the 28. Okay, so that was just a little example of how we can problem solve if we're not correct in our data. So we double checked, all of our data is correct now, it's inputted into the calculator. Now we can do the actual statistic. So I'm going to go back to stat. Now we're going to calculate some statistics. So I'm going to arrow over to calculate. Right now we're using one variable statistics. We'll learn some of this other stuff later on in the unit, but right now we're just going to do one variable statistics, so I'm going to push enter. This is asking me what list I want to use. We're going to start with L1, Aubrey Griffin's data. I'm going to go down to calculate and push enter. This gives me a lot of data. Some things we know, the X bar means mean and number of data points. And then it's down here, the stuff we want. The minimum X value, the lowest amount of points you scored, our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, and our maximum point. So that's the data we're going to take and we're going to write on our page. So we're going to go there. We can see from our calculator, our min is 12, quartile 1 is 15, our median is 21, quartile 3 is 24, and our max is 28. Then from there, we can calculate our interquartile range, right? Quartile 3 minus quartile 1, it would be 9. And then go and get our lower bound, upper bound, and our outliers. Okay, so I'll leave that to you guys. But now let's go back to our calculator and let's get our data for Ice Brady. Okay? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit stat. I'm going to go over to calculate. I'm going to do our one variable statistics again. But this time to get our data for Ice Brady, we don't want list 1. We want list 2. So if you notice above numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in blue you have L1, L2, L3, and so on. We want L2, so I'm going to push second 2, and that just replaces it with list 2, which is Ice Brady's data. We're going to hit calculate, and then we see some new min, new quartile, median, quartile 3, and so on. So that's what we're going to take to write down for Ice Brady's data. So here we go. Let's see, for Ice Brady, we've got our min of 10, our quartile 1 of 17, our median of 20.5, quartile 3 is 22, our max is 31, our interquartile range, 22 minus 20.5 would just be, oops, nope, that's our median subtracted there. So 22 minus 17 would be 5. So here we've written down all the data from our calculator. So now we need to go and figure out our interquartile range, our lower and upper bound, and our outliers. So our interquartile range would be 24 minus 15, which is going to be 9. So then our lower bound, we're going to be doing 15 minus 1.5 times 9. 1.5 times 9 is 13.5. which means our lower bound is 1.5. Okay, our upper bound would be quartile 3 plus 1.5 times our interquartile range of 9, so 24 plus 13.5. Our upper bound is 37.5. So let's see, did we have anything? We obviously didn't have anything below 1.5. We also didn't have anything above 37.5. So our outliers, we have none. Okay. So now let's look for Ice Brady. Our interquartile range would be 22 minus 17, which is 5. Our lower bound is going to be 17 minus 1.5 times 5. So 17 minus 7.5, which gives us 9.5. Ooh, so just missed having an outlier there. And then our upper bound would be 22 plus 1.5 times 5. 22 plus 7.5 gives us 29.5, which means the max of 31 is actually an outlier. So then going back, our max should really be the next highest, which would be 25. Okay, so now we're going to make a box and whisker plot. I'm going to do Ice Brady's, and then I'll do Aubrey Griffin's above it. Okay, so let's see. Quartile 1 is 17. So that'll be right there. Quartile 3 is 22. There we go. Median is 20.5. Now our new max is 25. Our min is 10. And then our outlier is 31. Okay, and that was for Ice Brady. I'm just going to label it IB, initials. Okay, now Aubrey Griffin, let's see. In first quartile was 15. Third quartile was 24. Okay. Our median was 21. Okay. Max is 28. And the minimum was 12. There we go. And that was for Aubrey Griffin. Okay, so then down here, just ask, who would you recommend to start? Support your answer using the data. And there's no one correct answer here. Not only is it opinion-based, but you can make different arguments for different things. For me, I think that Aubrey Griffin should start because a quarter of her data is between 21 and 24. So that means in a quarter of the games, she scores between 21 and 24 points, which to me is pretty consistent. And I think I like consistency there. Okay. Or you could also look at how half of her points are between half of her games she scores between 21 and 28 points. Some people might argue the fact that Ice Brady had a game at 31 points, that could happen again. With it being an outlier, I would say kind of against that.
So before you go on to the classwork, we want to just talk a little bit about how we prepare our calculator to go back and put in new data. So one option is to go back and to clear out your memory again and reset everything. The other option, okay, is to go back to stat, go back to edit for our list, and clear the list. Right now, if I push clear on the top and push enter, it doesn't really do anything. What I need to do is go up to L1, and I can see it showing me all my data there, and I'm going to push clear, not delete, clear, and enter. If I push delete by accident, what's going to happen is it's going to delete the space for the list also. Now I push delete, now there is no more L2. So I have to retrieve that from the calculator. I could go back and reset my calculator and everything would be good as new. Otherwise, what I need to do is insert the list space again. So I would push second, delete, which is insert. Now that's given the space. Now I want to name it L2. I'm going to push second, L2. Okay? And now I can go back and push clear and clear out all the data points. Okay? So those are just a few of the things you can encounter as you're starting to learn with the calculator, but that's something we'll talk about more in class. When in doubt, you can just reset the calculator.